Hey, welcome to another episode of Fast Forward, a podcast from QSR Magazine where we talk to the founders, innovators, and entrepreneurs behind some of the world's most exciting fast casual restaurant concepts. My name is Sam Oches. I'm the editor of QSR and the editorial director of Food News Media. Today, sharing a conversation with Adam Romo. He is the CEO of Eatzi, a market and bakery concept based in Dallas that has had something of a renaissance in the last 8 or 9 years. Now, before off-premises, before third-party delivery, before Blue Apron, or any of these other services that allowed you to eat your food at home, there was the home meal replacement movement. This was in the 90s and early 2000s where restaurant companies like, for example, Boston Market were really promoting this idea of replacing the home-cooked dinner with a cooked dinner from their restaurant, but not just something where you buy a burger and fries, but something that's prepared for, maybe the whole family. And it was in this environment that Eatzi first got its start. This is way back in 1996 when Eatzi got its start from renowned restaurateur Phil Romano in Dallas. It was launched as this home meal replacement offering and became a Dallas staple in a very quick amount of time back in the 1990s. This was something that families and people just really fell in love with as this idea of swinging into this market-like concept where there was several fresh food offerings throughout the concept. You could walk around, get grab and go. You could get freshly prepared meats and things such as this, and buy it for your whole family and go home and eat it there. And this was a concept that really thrived. This was back before the term fast casual existed. So what Eatzi was doing, of course, wasn't a full-service restaurant. It wasn't a fast food restaurant. It was doing something entirely different that today we would call fast casual. But the story didn't really go the way that, people might have thought it would based on the early success of Eatzi. And that's what Adam and I talk about in this conversation. Adam was the CFO back in the late 90s when the concept launched, and he recalls these early days where the things just exploded out of the gates, and Eatzi quickly started expanding to other cities outside of Dallas. But as he recalls in this conversation, it went south pretty quickly. The company didn't work everywhere, especially when they went to New York. They found the limitations of where this home meal replacement concept could really work. And so Adam actually left the company after a few years, but the renaissance really started in 2011. Adam came back to be the CEO. Phil Romano invited him to come back to lead the brand, and now it's back to growing again. There are 6 locations in the Dallas-Fort Worth market and plans to grow, and Adam explains all about how this concept works, what went wrong the first time around when Eatzi was growing, and now how they've corrected some of those mistakes and set the concept up for growth. I started by having Adam explain the Eatzi concept, because when you hear this idea of a market, it could really entail a lot of things. These days, it could be like a farmer's market or a food hall or something kind of like Italy. But Adam does a great job really explaining here out of the gate what the concept of Eatzi is.
The business model is we are providing a wide variety of high-quality, chef-crafted meals for the taken. We prepare those from scratch every day on site, and the variety we offer is staggering. The quality is, like I said, it's from scratch, and we have culinary trained chefs, and it's all made on site. So we have 2 size stores. One is 10,000 square feet, and the other is about 5,500 square feet. And you walk into the store, and we have these distinct venues. So we have a center chef's case, which you can buy anything you could imagine, by the pound or by the each, whether it's Parmesan crusted chicken or tuna salad, chicken salad, pasta salads. We have a build-your-own sandwich area. We have a build-your-own salad station. We have a hot grill. We have a build-your-own pasta station. Most of what we have is customizable because that's what the consumer wants nowadays.
Right.
And everything we sell is in customizable to-go packages. So it's very convenient-based. It's convenient-based. We were fast casual before fast casual was born.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, this was in 1996, and there was no other concept out there like that. And, fast casual was born, 10 years ago, but most of these concepts are very limited menu items, and very limited offerings, and very small space. And it's all, again, it's designed for take your meals to go.
Right.
But we do that on steroids. We offer, every day we have about 1,600 SKUs available. 85% of what we sell is prepared foods.
Okay.
Now, we do have a grocery component, which is things that complement our meals like chips, salsas, beer and wine, the things that would go with our food.
Okay.
That represents about 15% of our sales. Mm-hmm. So obviously at 85%, we are selling chef prepared meals, and the convenience factor is more important today than it's ever been.
Yeah.
But anyway, so you come into the store, you walk through the kitchen. So the theater is a hallmark of Phil Romano concepts, right? So you walk in, you've got the bakery on the right. You see the bakers baking the bread, mixing, cutting, forming, shaping. On the left side, you see the full-scale kitchen, kettles, ovens, and all the foods being cooked. And it's really, really fun. It's a fun vibe. You hear the opera music. And on Fridays, we play what we call pizza music, because that's the day we do pizzas.
Hold on a second. What's pizza music?
Well, it's big band music, right? Okay. The Sinatra and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And so, and it's really a nice change from the opera that plays all the time. I mean, you see people dancing, little kids are dancing, adults are dancing, singing. It's just a whole different vibe, but it's more of that, big band, and it's a nice change from the opera. Uh-huh. And so you've got all this theater that really gives you a full experience that's unlike any other fast casual or really any restaurant. Right. And because you're walking through the kitchen, right? So you see the food being prepared, you smell the great aromas, you hear the fun music, you see as you completely enter the store, then you see all the food, all the activities, the shopping, people ordering their customizable sandwiches, salads, the hot grill meals. And we have virtually every type of cuisine you could imagine, and you can get it. The chef's case, everything's cold. Mm-hmm. Some of the things you can eat cold. Some people will heat them up. Just depends on what it is. But everything's, again, it's made fresh from scratch every day. So we start over again the next day, mm-hmm. and our customers have learned that and understand the brand, that they're coming there. They're going to get a great meal. It's going to be great service. And it's going to be at a fair price. Yeah. For what a lot of people consider to be gourmet quality food, it's not gourmet prices.
Right.
So
you've used the term fast casual several times, but it's interesting because, I mean, is it fast casual? Do you have a term for what you think the category Eatzi's is in?
Well, when the concept was born in '96. Back then, it was termed home meal replacement.
Okay, fast casual. The term didn't exist.
Right, and that's what it was called. And then you look at all the articles that were written. The segment was defined as home meal replacement.
Yeah.
Boston Market was another big player at that time in home meal replacement. Mm-hmm. So we are preparing foods for people who don't want to cook. Mm-hmm. And that's where the world is today. I mean, you look at the frequency of our customer repeat visits. 70% of our customers visit us twice a week or more. Wow. 50% are visiting us 3 times a week or more.
Wow.
That's staggering, right?
Absolutely.
So how many restaurants do you go to 3 times a week or more?
Pretty much none.
None, right. I don't either other than Eatzi's.
Yeah.
So again, we are, the concept is designed for convenience, for the customer who doesn't cook. Our customer doesn't cook. If they don't come to Eatzi's, mm-hmm. they're going to a restaurant, they're going to a fast casual type concept, they're picking up, they're ordering for delivery, they don't cook. And, as time goes on, in another 10 years, that percentage of the population that does that is just going to get bigger and bigger.
Absolutely.
So that's what our concept is. Mm-hmm. And, of course, we've got a lot of differentiation from some of the other concepts. Again, from fast casual, our menu is like I said, 1,600 SKUs on any one day. Mm-hmm. Compare that to your Chipotle's or your Jimmy John's and all that. Very limited menu, good quality,
right? But
limited menu.
Yeah.
So that's why people won't frequent those places as often. With our offering, you can get something different, every visit. And not get tired of it.
Yeah. So started back in '96, right? And so this was a Phil Romano concept. Obviously, he's a legend in the restaurant industry. I think most listeners know that name. What was he trying to accomplish when he started this? I mean, what demand was he trying to satisfy by opening Eatzi's at that time?
At that time, a lot of the industry analysts recognized there was a void in the market, and that was for the person who didn't want to go to the grocery store, right? So you got the time of going to the grocery store, shopping for your ingredients, taking those ingredients home, cooking them, and then after your meal, you have to clean up. So it was becoming apparent that people were wanting to get away from that, but they didn't want to spend the time it took to go to a full-service restaurant. Okay, so back then in '96, much smaller universe of restaurants, so wait times were much longer. The time commitment was an hour and a half, say. By the time you arrive, get on the wait list, get your meal, and get out. As people became more time-starved, they were demanding a different way of fulfilling their meals. And it was more about, I want a good meal, but I don't want to invest all this time because I've got a lot of other things going on in my life. Yeah. You're starting to raise kids. I've got all their activities. Now both spouses are working. It's all those factors that have only become more intensified through the years. So the idea was, let's create a concept where you can get a really good home cooked meal. That was the idea. It was home cooked, but there's nothing home cooked about ours. I mean, it's really high quality, more gourmet. We got a spin on all of our recipes, but let's offer that in a convenient shopping format. And that was the idea. And so then, back then, if you looked at the coverage we got in Time and Forbes, I mean, it was phenomenal for a one-store concept. Yeah. At that time, we had all the industry executives from both restaurants and grocery stores inviting and visiting us.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was interesting.
It must have seemed like the future. I mean, at that time, that was the future. Right?
Yeah. And some of the headlines in those articles were the future of food and the future of dining. And they, again, home meal replacement. That was all over the place.
Yeah. So at what point did you get brought in? Because you've had 2 stints at Eatzi's now. The first stint, at what point did you come in?
I came in at the beginning.
You did,
so
right
I was the chief financial officer. And at that time, it was a joint venture between Brinker International and Phil.
Right.
But Phil quickly recognized that this isn't like a typical restaurant. We can't just fold it in and manage it and grow it under the typical restaurant infrastructure, which is what Brinker had.
Right.
And they did that very well. So he formed his own management team. He hired a CEO from Brinker. I came over as a CFO. We hired a chief operating officer. So we had our entirely separate management team where we could look at the business with a blank piece of paper and then build the business the way we thought it needed to be built. Separate from, we don't have to pigeonhole it into a restaurant type processes and systems and all the support that was already available from a restaurant company like Brinker.
Right. What was the vibe of the company at that time? Because, I mean, if the media is saying this is the future of restaurants, you're a young guy at that time. You're coming in as CFO.
I'm still
young. You were younger at that time. What did it feel like to work for this company that seemed like it was going to conquer the world with this new model?
There was an incredible sense of pride, an incredible sense of excitement being associated and part of a business that was so unique and that was getting the kind of attention that it was. I mean, at the time, so our goal was let's open as many stores as we can. I was inundated with investment bankers coming in and saying, you know what, let's take this thing public. We'll get you financing. You'll have these things all over the country. So that was what our expansion strategy was. Now, as everybody knows in this business, when you start expanding out of your home base into other states, that's a very difficult way to expand. Not undoable, but just much more higher risk and more difficult. So you need a larger corporate team to implement and execute that expansion.
Right.
So we went from Dallas to Houston to Atlanta to Washington. All those stores were doing great. I mean, again, because this was this desire from a consumer to get this home meal replacement option was throughout. It existed throughout the country, and we saw that. We heard the same feedback when we came. Oh, thank you for coming. We love you. This has changed my life. Heard that everywhere. We got to New York. We opened 2 locations there, and a lot of people say, well, it was overexpansion that really was our downfall, but it wasn't. It wasn't overexpansion. It was those 2 were the worst sites we could have chosen.
Okay.
Now, at that time, we didn't see that. And it wasn't obvious because this was a very unique concept. It wasn't your typical concept. But, going into the basement of Macy's, which we thought was a safe decision because, we were replacing all the food concepts in there that did high volume. But they did high volume, so we thought, okay, that's a no-brainer. We'll do 50% better than that because we're better. The food's better. And what we missed was the convenience factor.
Okay.
We didn't understand that, you know what, we're a convenient concept, but if you're not convenient to the consumer with your location, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And that's true today. But, back then there was no such thing as convenience-based locations. It was, there wasn't about that. When you drove to a restaurant, if I drive 10 or 15 minutes because I'm going to spend an hour and a half, that you don't mind doing that. You will do that. It's a special occasion type of visit, more so than not.
Right.
So what we missed so we weren't convenient because we were in the basement of Macy's. So you had to go into another retail business to get to Eatzi.
And is this Manhattan?
Manhattan,
okay.
Right? Yeah, on 34th Street.
Yeah,
right?
wow.
So we were the debacle on 34th Street, not the miracle. And I can laugh about it now. Back then,
Not laughing.
We weren't laughing then because it was really unfortunate for what it did to the brand. But the other thing that we realized after the fact is that in that part of the world, with everybody commuting out to the boroughs, they're getting on the trains, the subways. They didn't want to carry their food on the transportation
all the way home.
Yeah. So what they did, their mindset and the way they lived is, let me get to my neighborhood, then I'll figure out where I'm going to eat. So we didn't get all that take-home business that we thought we would.
Right.
And we didn't realize that. Now, if we did in focus groups, maybe we would have figured it out. Not sure. But that's what really made that store fail.
Well, it seems too, especially having started here in Dallas, did it seem like maybe the sort of suburban soccer mom or dad was maybe more your key demographic than it was the professional in Manhattan who's catching the train home? Is there a little bit of a difference of your demographic that you were aiming for? I
don't think so, and that's a good question. But no, because our first store was in Uptown, which is just right outside downtown.
Sure,
so we weren't in the suburbs then. And in fact, most of those shoppers, the everyday shopper customer, was living in a condo, apartment, high rise. They were in Uptown. It's an urban location.
Yeah.
So that wasn't the case. And then now on the weekends we saw the surge of suburb shoppers come down there, and you saw the sales on the weekends was just the difference between the weekdays. The weekdays were strong, weekends were astronomical. So so that we were getting all that back then from the suburbs. So
gotcha. And how fast was all that expansion?
That was all in a year and a half.
Holy moly! Yeah, and so your team must have been huge because you must have had to bring on all these resources to facilitate all of that.
We did because you think about you needed we probably had about 30 people when we still had one store because we were putting the infrastructure in place to grow. So then you're having to travel out of town. Think about it. You're having to hire 200 people to open one of those stores.
Yeah, and
then you've got your construction people, you've got your real estate site selection people, you've got your ops people. So we had to put that infrastructure was necessary to grow at that pace. So which is why we're not doing that now. We're not interested in that. We're not interested in going public. We're growing at a pace that we're very comfortable with, that we know we won't make mistakes because we've learned from all that.
Yeah.
And I call it our 2.0 reset.
Well, what happened? What happened with 1.0?
Well,
why did this all come crumbling down?
Yeah, good question. So there was a second location we opened within a few months from the Macy's location.
Okay.
It was on Long Island. Again, it was a very poor location. And so those two stores, because of the cost of operating a retail business in New York is very expensive, the real estate, everything about it, rent, labor, unions.
Also their food preferences, right? Because they've got these independent restaurants they love to go to. Yeah.
Yes. I think our food would do well in New York. I'm confident that would. It wasn't. That was not a factor.
Okay.
It was more about lifestyle and lack of convenience and the commutes. So we opened those two stores. Well, because of the high operating costs, those two stores were losing more than the other four were generating, and the other four were generating strong profit.
Wow.
So because the break even was so high, and that was really what was the demise of the business. So at that point, nobody wanted to invest any more money. Let's put a halt on expansion, because at that time we didn't understand what the problem was. Why isn't this working here? It's working everywhere else.
Oh, you
right?
couldn't identify that it was just the market.
No, we didn't know. We didn't know immediately
Gotcha.
what the issue was. It took some time. So at that point, when they shut down expansion, so then everybody at corporate's like, well, why am I here? I came here for an expansion. So everybody started. It was, but nobody wanted to invest any more capital.
Uh-huh.
So you had 2 problem stores that were losing, again, more money than the other 4 were generating. And it just put the brakes on everything and really put a big question mark on what's the future of the brand.
And that was just a few years after it had first opened,
That was in 99, 3 years after.
3 years. So
yeah.
in 3 years, you went through this whole life cycle of a restaurant.
Right.
Which I imagine must have been a pretty good educational opportunity for you now later on in your career. You did leave Eatzi's.
I did.
Were you one of those people who were worried because the expansion's not happening anymore?
Well, as a CFO, I'm dealing with Wall Street. I knew before anybody else what was happening. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could see it. Mm-hmm. I knew what, you looking at the numbers and where we were financially and where we were going to be financially without any significant change. I knew where it was headed, so that was during the tech boom back during the 99, 2000.
Sure.
So I went out to New York. I went out to California and joined a tech company during the tech bubble. But
I was going to say, oh man, and then quickly that must have gone a little bit south there. I mean, did the bubble burst on your company too?
Yeah, it burst when I was there. But I'll tell you, the education I got was I would do it all over again.
Yeah.
And I got to live in California and L.A., so no, I don't regret any of that.
Sure.
But,
well, and again, all of that then informs probably what you're able to do now, the opportunity you have to try to revive Eatzi's. What was the point at which you came back? Because Phil invited you to come back. Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
Well, so let me finish the transition. So what happened was basically Brinker and everybody's out. So they sold the company. They closed the 2 stores first.
Okay.
You couldn't sell it with those 2 stores.
Right.
So they closed them. They sold it to a private equity firm out of Boston. So then what they did is they doubled down and opened 2 horrible locations. They opened one in Chicago in a mall. Think about that.
Outside downtown.
Yes.
Okay.
So who goes to the mall for your everyday dinner dining options? Nobody.
Right.
And then they opened a second location in Atlanta, and it was just a poor site. So they made the same mistakes, although they didn't learn from the first mistakes.
Yeah.
So then they further exacerbated it by saying, you know what? We're purchasing really expensive ingredients for all our items. Why don't we buy cheaper ingredients and improve our gross margins? Okay, that works for a little while.
Yeah.
For a few months, your profits increase, but then your customers go, this food's not as good anymore. In fact, it's pretty bad. So they created their own death spiral. Now, and then private equity firms, that they manage by numbers pretty much, and that was an obvious. You look in hindsight, it was a really obvious mistake that they could have easily avoided.
Yeah.
So long story short, they took it into bankruptcy.
Okay.
And so Phil bought the original store back. They shut the other ones down, and he got it. They also made changes in there that made it more like a grocery store, putting greeting cards and things like that, which it just changed the concept, the vibe, the look, the feel.
That's not why people are there.
That's not why people are there.
Yeah.
They were trying to make it more, let's put all these impulse purchase items at the register, and it just changed the concept. So, so when he bought it back, he returned it to its original format, saw the sales more than double. Because again, Eatzi's is back. He made sure that all the recipes were restored to the original, using high quality ingredients, and then the concept was back. So, I mean, again, because the issues weren't with the brand or the concept, it's the way it was managed and those decisions that were made at that time and those mistakes. So then he decided, okay, let's start growing this thing again, but let's stay close to home. Let's do it here because, now you fast forward 20 plus years, right? America's density, population has grown significantly. It's more dense. We're becoming Europe, right? In that regard. So, you don't have to go to another city to open a second 10,000 square foot location. Right. Now you can go to the suburbs because Plano now is a massive city.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So that was our third big store. So you didn't have to leave DFW to expand, and you could actually expand, with lower risk execution. Right. So I came back and started looking at, okay, what do we do?
What year was that you came back?
I came back in 2011.
So it was a 12-year period.
Right.
that it was wandering.
Yes.
And then you come back, and when you came back, how many were there? It had Phil opened at that time.
He just opened the first small store, the second store total.
Okay.
So there was one on Lovers Lane, which is about 5,000 square feet.
Okay.
And what we do is it's in a strip center. It's in a power regional intersection. And one thing that this second prototype enables us to do is open more stores. It opens up more real estate opportunities for us, because our big store, 10,000 square feet, it requires about 2.5 acres.
Oh, wow.
So, and you think about real estate today, it's hard to find 2.5 acres available to one tenant in a quality location.
Right.
Now, we found that in Grapevine. We found that in Plano.
Easier to find in Dallas than most places.
Exactly. That's exactly true.
Yeah.
So, right. So,
Yeah.
but now with with a store half the size, still offering virtually the same number of SKUs, because we formatted the store so we could do that.
Mm-hmm.
We were able to. Now you open up opportunities for real estate locations that never existed before.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the business model. Now we can open more and more stores. Probably you would wind up, if you start expanding this nationally, you'll wind up with much more smaller stores, because that real estate constraint exists everywhere. Like you said, I mean, you go to any big city,
mm-hmm.
The urban areas, where are you going to find 2.5 acres? Mm-hmm. It just doesn't exist.
No.
So
2011, the industry had actually changed quite a bit by that point, right? So, now there's a term for fast casual, and then you have the, Panera and Chipotle both explode. And in 2011 especially, I think that was really the height of everybody trying to beat Chipotle, right? So you had everybody doing customization and this and that. What do you take from that at that point? So you come in 2011. Have you learned from where the industry is now and want to apply those lessons to Eatzi's, or is it more like, let's bring Eatzi's back to what it was originally intended to be? So,
good question. And what I did when I first came back is I spent the first year looking for a new location where we could open another store, and to make sure I understood if the concept had changed in the view of the consumer. What did the brand represent? So we did significant surveys with our existing customers in the stores. And we found our mantra from that. And it was the same exact results that we had in 1996. So why do people come to Eatzi's? I call it QVCPT. That's our Bible. That's our guiding principles that we use to make every decision. And we embrace it, we live it, and we know it's going to maintain the integrity of the brand, because that's what our customers want from us. They want quality food. They come because of the wide variety. They want it in a convenient format. They want to pay a fair price. Nobody wants to pay more, even if the food's higher quality.
Right.
So price value is important. And then the theater is kind of the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
It's what we provide that most other concepts don't provide. But theater doesn't matter if those other quality, variety, convenience, and price value don't exist. Theater doesn't matter.
Right.
But for us, it provides some emotional fulfillment on top of everything else for that brand.
Sure.
For our brand. So once we figured out that this is still the 5 most important factors or characteristics, attributes of our brand, we made sure that everything we did going forward, every decision, if it didn't improve the quality or the variety or the convenience or price value, we wouldn't make that decision.
Yeah.
Anything that was detrimental to these characteristics, it's flat no. These were sacred cows.
Yeah.
And people say don't have sacred cows, but these are our critical branding elements. So
core values, right?
Core values, yeah. Call them guiding principles.
Sure,
sure. Same thing. So with that in mind, then we figured out, okay, let's improve the quality of our food. Our menu was pretty much the same, hadn't changed much, in those 12 years. Great food, but times are changing. So I challenged our culinary team. Let's increase the wow factor of our food. Let's contemporize our menus. Our recipes. Some of our recipes are dated. Just tweak them a little so that they're more contemporary and more relevant today. Let's increase our variety. Well, we can't put any more SKUs in our store, but let's turn over the things that aren't really that popular anymore, and let's create some new items, new recipes. 6 years. This is an interesting metric for our business, and this goes to the initiatives we took on. 6 years ago, in our top 3 selling venues, 50% of our items are new. Our top selling items. So we've turned that's a huge turnover in your menu.
Yeah.
And you don't see many restaurant concepts that do that. Usually that doesn't work for you because you're changing your concept.
Right.
But for us, a new menu item may have been just tweaking the recipe, right? So and tweaking the look, the spice profile, and we did all those things. And one example is a chicken fried steak we had. It's one of our daily specials at the grill on Wednesday. We were using your typical ground round top sirloin, and it sold okay. And I thought, it's just an okay product. It's not great.
Yeah.
So we worked on it. We reformulated it. We're using a ribeye now, which is a high quality piece of steak.
Yeah.
So we're doing chicken fried ribeye. Well, the sales grew by 50%. We're able to charge more because it's a more expensive product.
Right.
But the customer had no problem with that because it was the price value. They were getting an improved product for that increased price.
And ribeye says something to them.
Yes,
they understand that
exactly.
Yeah.
So and it's a huge piece too. So again, price value is really strong, and so that's an example of something we did throughout the store with every item. We looked to where we could improve the quality, and those are the initiatives. The other thing I found is we needed to increase the business acumen of our store managers. I don't think there's a store manager that we have today that's been here longer than 6 years. So, and that's by design. We needed to increase the quality of our management team, both in the front of the house and the back of the house. So, our business acumen, our culinary acumen, is significantly improved. It's night and day compared to where it was back then, and that's helped us achieve all these improvements in our core items.
So when this renaissance happens, then were customers here for it? I mean, like, were they embracing the Eatzis that they knew and loved, or, I mean, to some degree, with the industry having evolved as it had, and with that expectation of customization, have it your way, whatever, was it hard to win them back? I guess.
No, not at all. In fact, we were surprised at how well the response we received, because we today get. And through the years, not just today, I get approached by customers like, hey, I live in Rockwall, which is about an hour from here. Please put one in Rockwall. Please put one in. I mean, every suburb, people who are shopping our stores will ask us. They'll email us. They'll put it on social media. Please come to my neighborhood. So that doesn't just happen in Dallas. This is happening all over the country. We have customers who drive from Oklahoma City, Baton Rouge, Midland, Texas, and they come in with their ice chests, and they load up on the weekends.
Wow.
Yes. Oklahoma. I don't know if I said Oklahoma City, Tulsa. They are driving here, loading up their ice chest, and then driving home for the week. And we see that. And when you come into my town, when you come into my city, I get approached by. I can't think of a major city that I haven't received correspondence asking about an Eatzi's from either a customer or a real estate executive or a developer. So it's the word is out, and a lot of it too is people. Hey, I was at your store. I was in town on business. This would be great in this location. And it's either the business person that was traveling, or a business or a real estate developer who heard about it, and that's so we're getting that we're a choice anchor for real estate developments all around the country.
Yeah. So going to the C in your QVCPT, convenience. I feel like today is I think sort of the number one thing that most people are kind of paying attention to, because in 2011, I think quality was maybe more so elevated, and at that time we saw in QSR in particular, a lot of the QSR brands were trying to update their menus, and the fast casuals are king because of high quality food. And at some point in the last 3 years, call it, there was a pretty significant pivot back toward convenience. And the way I always explain it to people is that, in 2011, if you talked about a fast casual adding a drive-through, they would scoff at you because that's fast food, and we don't do that. Well, now, of course, you have mobile ordering, you have third-party delivery, Chipotle's rolling out drive-thrus, and everybody is looking at convenience. So how do you adapt to that now today, too, especially with the technology available to making this a little bit easier?
Well, I'll give you a scoop here in this
All right,
in our discussion today. So, because you're exactly right, and 5 years ago, I started looking at, do we need to be in e-commerce? At that time, it wasn't obvious. I mean, that's when it really started to rise to the forefront. And you're right, convenience now, I need to move that up and change my my acronym because it is more important. It is the most important thing now for customers. They're going to assume the quality and all that is a given, but if it's not convenient, you're not an option.
Right.
So I started looking at that about 5 years ago, and felt it was a little bit too early because with all the things that were going on with the delivery companies and the fact that our concept was designed in a to-go format made it less critical or less urgent.
Yeah.
It didn't eliminate it, but we were already designed like no other restaurant, no other fast casual.
Right.
So we had a head start because we were born as a convenient-based food service operation. We are actually working on our e-commerce platform right now.
There you go.
So we should be able to launch that in April of next year is what we're targeting, and we'll be able to do it. You'll be able to order anything online, anything in any of our stores online, and for pickup or delivery.
Okay.
So
in-house delivery, or are you going to do the third party?
We're probably going to use a third party.
Okay.
We're still figuring that out.
Yep.
But right now we're knee deep in the middle of all the development, software development. One thing we can't do because of the type, when you visit our store, you'll see that we can't use an off-the-shelf restaurant solution, e-commerce, or even POS. We use a grocery store POS system because of the nature of our business and the way transactions are processed and sold. We sell things they're by the weight and all that, so it's very different from a restaurant, and plus the number of SKUs. So those don't work for us.
Right.
So we're having to develop our own software e-commerce solution, which isn't. It sounds daunting. It is daunting actually, but luckily we've got a really smart team. We've got a great team, and we're very, very confident that we'll roll this out. It's going to work really nicely.
Would you need a Streamline at all? Like the number of menu options available on the digital platform, would that have to be fewer than what's in store?
Very little streamlining.
Gotcha.
Yeah, shouldn't have to do much. We'll do maybe some. There's things that don't sell, in general, like oils and dry pastas, those type of things. People aren't buying those now, so there's no reason to offer that online.
Sure.
But so we're excited, and we're very excited about being able to roll that out next year.
What about like a pickup lane or curbside?
Well, our current stores aren't. There's not an option to do that. We'll be able to do curbside pickup. We're going to actually look at a curbside pickup. We'll be able to dedicate some spaces for that. So we'll be able to do that. But as far as being able to do a drive-through type lane or any kind of separate entrance for pickup, the configuration of our stores it's not possible to do that. It doesn't lend itself for that.
Good.
Would like to do that.
Yeah.
But for new stores, that's something we could do.
Yeah, I mean, because you think about, the supermarkets are doing that now, right? Target does their drive-through lane, and this is sort of the name of the game now, where for the family that doesn't want to get out of the car, or I have two kids, and it's you have to pick up something in 30 seconds. You're not allowed to leave your kids in a car for 30 seconds, right? So unfortunately, so it's either haul your kids out for the 30 seconds and then haul them back. Or you have this option where you can have somebody brought out to your car, and it does really make things more convenient, right?
Right. In fact, if you look at this blackboard right here, you can see that was our developers were kind of outlining some of the infrastructure for the back end on the system.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, we're like I said, we're right in the middle of that, and it's exciting. So we can't wait to be able to offer that. Now, another thing, it's more challenging for us. It is a challenge because restaurants all have a single kitchen, right? So the kitchen employees don't know whether it's a digital order or a physical order, because it's printing out on a KDU in the back. It comes out, it illustrates on a KDU in the back. So they're just seeing orders come through. They don't, and it doesn't matter to them. So it's the same line that's fulfilling or preparing that food. In our store, we have venues all around the store. So you shop the hot grill, you get your food there. You shop the if you're shopping build your own sandwich or build your own salad or the chef's case or the build your own pasta, those are all separate stations. So what we're going to have to do is more similar to like a grocery store where shoppers go out and shop your order, right? Because if you place that order online, someone's got to go and fulfill that order,
right?
And you got this store where all the products are, in a very wide space. There's not one kitchen preparing everything.
Right.
That's how our stores are set up.
Okay.
So we'll have to use people to actually fulfill the orders. So one of the things technologically that we'll do is we're going to have remote printers in every venue. So when an order comes through, every venue's getting that order immediately. They're not having to wait for somebody to come in and deliver them the order. That would just slow everything down. So remote printers in our environment was critical that that every venue could get that order immediately.
Sure. So Eatzi's 2.0, 2011 it starts, right? The new era of Eatzi's. How much did you have to adapt to some of the other things, other parts of QVCPT? I mean, the menu, the SKUs, and all those things. Were there parts of it that maybe felt outdated compared to the late 90s when the original heyday happened? How much work did you have to put into changing?
I really didn't change anything. I just enhanced because the brand worked. It worked then and it works now. So for me, it was about bring in higher quality management personnel, bring in higher quality culinary personnel, improve. So that in turn you improve the quality of your food. Hire better people, improve your training so that the service is faster, because again, it's all about the convenience. And so those were the things I focused on, was just improving what we already did. And obviously the positive results from our menu turnover was phenomenal. So the customer told us, yes, thank you, because they're buying all the new things that we incorporated into our menu.
Yeah.
And while still maintaining or offering the 25-year-old recipes that are still great today. They didn't need tweaking.
Yeah.
Our tuna salad, our chicken salad, those things haven't changed. It's the best tuna salad I think I've ever. I'll say maybe I'm biased, but it's the best tuna salad around. Our customers tell us that. So,
well, if they say so, then that's all
right.
that counts.
That's all I care about. You're right. That's all that matters.
What about in terms of things that maybe were a little bit of a harsher reality when you started 2.0? Were there things about the industry, the business, or customer expectations that were harder for you to adapt to?
Really, the only thing is the customer is more educated about food. I saw that difference.
Yeah.
Everybody watches the Food Network. They're Googling everything.
Calorie conscious.
Yes, all that. They want to know what's in their food. That never used to be the case. So just the consumer demand for information about the food was different.
Yeah.
So it made it a little more. That was more challenging for us because you look at our recipes. We have 4,000 proprietary recipes.
Wow.
Yes. And we're turning our recipes over all the time for seasonality as well. We have a separate separate menu for the holidays: Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, Hanukkah, Valentine's. So we turn our menu and our offerings change more frequently than any other restaurant. Their heads would spin if they had to do that. But it's the nature of we're a market. So that's why we get the free return frequency, because there is so much variety. So that's one thing that is challenging for us, but we've gotten really good at it. We've learned how to be able to incorporate more variety with those 4,000 recipes. Right now, we're in the middle of hatch chili season. I don't know if that's big out on the East Coast.
East Coast, no. But
okay, but that's huge down here.
It should be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we rolled out 20 new recipes, 20 new items with hatch chilies in one day. And we'll run it for 2.5 weeks while hatch chilies are available. But I don't see that anywhere else. No, I don't see anyone else doing that.
Right.
And so that's kind of one of our secret sauces is our ability to do this. And then once it's over, we take it off the menu because we don't have a written menu per se. mean, you can look online and see a representation, but the menu in the store is your eyes looking at the food actually there, and you're looking at the actual food for sale. So that is something that's challenging to execute, but we're good at it. And I think that's one of the reasons you will never see an identical concept to Eatzi's.
Right.
It is the complexity of our operating environment is unparalleled.
Yeah. And
that's why fast casuals are limited 10, 15 item menus, and that's easy to execute. It is in comparison. So that's a barrier to anyone doing exactly what we do. So we don't. But again, everybody's a competitor in this business. So whether they only have 15 SKUs, 20 or 5, if it's good food and it's convenient, they're a competitor. So we're mindful of that.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's the environment, the restaurant population is overbuilt right now, and I think that. You probably see that traveling around the country. As far as challenges, that's created a labor challenge for us, and I'm sure you're aware of that. I would say that's our biggest challenge right now is just labor.
Yeah.
And it's finding good people, and we're paying them more. So it's finding people and the increased wage rates. So we're fighting that like everybody else.
Sure. Yep. I'm interested to get your take in the food hall trend, because it feels like Eatzi's was kind of like the original food hall in some way, right? I mean, and you think about something like Italy and some other businesses have sprung up that feel sort of kind of cut from the same cloth in a way. Do you feel like that's sort of kind of come down from what Eatzi's started back in the 90s? Like it's picked up a little bit of that?
That's funny you say that. I have a brother who lives in Manhattan, and he said, "Hey, there's a concept here called Italy. It reminds me of Eatzi's." And I go, "Really?" So the next time I was up visiting him, I went to the store and I thought, okay, I see why people might think it feels like an Eatzi's. It's like an Eatzi's. It's really not. It's a bunch of restaurants all under one roof with some retail. We're not a restaurant because everything in a restaurant is made to order. They wait till they place the order and then they're cooking it.
Right.
We're cooking and preparing it and putting it out for sale so that it's already there. If you don't sell it, it's waste.
Yeah.
So we've actually gotten really good at honing our production levels, so we don't have a lot of waste. But there's complexity in that, in cooking all your food in advance of a customer ordering it, right?
Yeah.
So in that regard, a restaurant is much simpler to operate.
Right.
But back to that, Italy, food halls, they all have that kind of vibe that you can get everything under one roof. That's what Eatzi's is. I've visited some of the food halls around the country, and I'm not sure if those are going to – I don't know if they're sustainable because the format and the quality of the food, I think, are somewhat I don't know if they can execute that.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Sure. I know some of the food halls are already having turnover in their tenants. So, and that speaks to, is the food good? Is it really that convenient? You're going into a large, the larger the building or the physical facility, the less convenient it is.
Right.
I know the one up in Plano is there's a big parking garage. Well, that requires a lot more investment time. You got to go into a garage, find your spot, then go over. So that I think that presents challenges for them in terms of convenience.
Right.
And like we talked about, everybody's looking for more convenience. So
yeah. Well, it's interesting though because it also pulls in some of the theater, I guess you could say, because it's a lot of experience. It's sort of an experiential thing. You go and I know you're talking about Legacy Hall, so you go and you get the kids all get a pass or whatever and can go get food from wherever they want, and there's bands playing, and it's very much about the experience as much as it is about maybe the food that you get, and I think in that too. That has become also important in today's restaurant industry, right? It's not just because, the term a lot of people use in this industry is lifestyle brand, right? And so I think what they're getting to is not only what brands do I root for and want to support or whatever, but it's also what brands do I feel like meet me in the experience that I want to have. And again, that feels like something Eatzi's was doing. It was 20 years ahead of the curve.
Right.
So can you lean into that? I mean, because to some degree you guys sort of helped invent this. Can you remind customers of that,
I think we're doing that to some extent today, and it's a great point you make about lifestyle. What we're seeing more people ask from us is, where's your sustainable options? Where's your non-farmed fish? Where's your cage-free egg offerings? We don't really sell eggs, but are your eggs cage-free?
Yeah.
That we use in our salads, for example, or that we cook for breakfast, because we're open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah.
7A to 10P. So we're getting more of those questions, and we are starting to incorporate some of those things into our menu. One of our new top sellers at the grill is we have a 100% grass-fed, no antibiotic, antibiotic-free, no hormones strip steak.
Okay.
It is phenomenal. And, I try to limit my beef consumption as I've gotten older, but I eat that at least once a week because the flavor profile is it's great. And our customers love it. I mean, we're selling a lot of that. And now not everything we offer is that successful, because there's a price for these things, right? I mean, a lot of those fish items are twice as much as what you get for farm-raised salmon, for example. Now, we use a North Atlantic salmon, so it's high quality, but it's still farm-raised. And when people ask, there's a subset out there of the population that, well, I'm not going to eat it. So, but if you're not going to offer it, then that's off limits. And we're seeing that obviously the population is really headed that way. I think more slowly than what you see in the media, but it is real.
Yeah.
So we are looking at more options of that. But what we've found is that even though people are asking, they don't want to pay what it costs to get those items. So we've done some fish like that. We've done some shrimp like that. And it just those items have not sold well because they are much more expensive.
Yeah. So let's talk about expansion, because obviously some of the intention behind reviving Eatzi's or investing in the 2.0 version of Eatzi's is to try to expand again, right? You're just in the DFW area, or do you have stores outside DFW currently?
Right now, we're just 6 stores in DFW. We have 1 store in Fort Worth.
Okay.
And our strategy is this.
Okay.
We're going to continue expanding, focused in Dallas-Fort Worth, until we don't believe there's any more locations we can open here. Now, the e-commerce is another form of expansion for us, because that's a real fight for that person who's not going to leave their house, so they're not going to come visit us, or anybody else that doesn't offer delivery or even a pickup option. So that's one form of expansion. Here's another scoop. I'll give to you, Sam.
I better get this out next week. So.
We are working on a prototype right now for airports.
Oh, interesting.
So we were approached, I want to say 7 years ago, the first time, to go into go into airports, and we said no. Then we were approached a few years after that. Hey, this would be great in airports. We said no because at that time we're in the middle of opening, up to our 6th store. So our focus was, let's focus on what we do well right now. That's a distraction. We don't want to bite off more than we can chew. We know what we're doing, and we've got great real estate options for these stores. So now that we're at 6, and we're in the most prime locations in the city right now in DFW. So finding the next prime location is more difficult because we've taken them all. Now, they will be there sometime in the future. I think Frisco, I've looked at Frisco. I've been looking, and I get inundated with opportunities from developers. It's too early for us. When I look at I have got a site selection matrix with all the qualitative and quantitative factors that I use to select a site. And Frisco, as fast as it's growing, isn't really there yet. Okay. So one day, yes, but it's not there yet. So in the meantime, it'll be there. Another area. There's other areas like that in Dallas that'll be there. They're just not there. There's an aspect or two demographically that don't meet our criteria. Yeah. So in the meantime, we know we haven't filled out the DFW market. So, but airports, we now are working on that.
That does make a lot of sense.
Yes, it does. And again, the e-commerce is that's a huge growth component for us. So to answer you, that's a long way of answering your question, that one day we will venture out of DFW. And what we'll do is we'll go to a neighboring city in Texas, because that's the easiest execution. It doesn't require this great ramp up of corporate infrastructure. So we'll go to Houston, we'll go to Austin, maybe San Antonio. Then once we fill out all those markets, then we start looking outside the state. So that's our approach.
And I'm wondering when that happens, is there an education necessary to guests who are not familiar with Eatzi's? Because, I mean, going back to the 90s when you were saying people were like, what is this thing? You're going to go through that again.
Well, that happens today.
Yeah, I'm sure
customers
people who
still come in today
here,
and do that.
Yeah. So, but being such a beloved sort of Dallas brand, you do still probably have a lot of people who are like, who get it. What do you have to do to get other people to get it in the other cities, or just let the experience speak for itself?
Yes and yes. Mm-hmm. But the first one is in the cities we've already been. The education and branding is going to be easy because we've already been there. And those are where we get the most requests, like come back to Houston, come back to Atlanta, come back to Maryland. Mm-hmm. So we get that. We don't get it from New York, but...
Easy's what?
Yeah. So, we weren't open long enough for people to even visit us. But the branding and the brand awareness is high where we've already existed. And again, that's where we're getting the majority of our requests, even though we get them throughout the country. So that will be easy. And I think the consumer today is much more, like I said a minute ago, they're much more educated about food and concepts that are more fast casual in nature. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't take them long to figure out, once they visit Eatzi's once or twice, they're like, okay, I get it down. And then you see them bring in they bring in a newbie. You see them bring in people, like, let me show you how this works. Yeah. It's so funny to watch that because they're giving the tour, they're explaining it. They're the expert. I mean, I love it. I love it because they're a brand ambassador for us. Yeah. And so that's fun to see. Yeah. So I think the education, to answer your question, is really, it doesn't take long. It's pretty quick. And again, in the cities that we've already been, the brand awareness is there. So those are slam dunks. Yeah.
So last question for you, Adam. You've had a really unique career, and having had the experience of being with one brand twice and kind of being through the ups and downs, you've had a very interesting education through all of that. And so we always ask people, what have you learned that you would impart to other entrepreneurs looking to get into this business? And it's funny because you would have advice for people who, I don't know how many people are going to have the experience you've had, but you've had such interesting lessons, I'm sure, through this. So what are the lessons that you've learned that maybe you feel like entrepreneurs getting into the food service business should know?
I think one thing that really works for me, and I'm a zealot about this, is I don't pretend to know all the answers. Some entrepreneurs are like that. They don't want advice. That's kind of the nature of an entrepreneur. I know what I want. I know how it's going to work. And so I've seen that. In a lot of places I've been, whether it's an entrepreneur or just any type of leader, and they want to make the decisions. And I've seen more mistakes made with that mentality and that approach. My approach is when I meet with one of my leadership teams or anybody, I don't tell them what I think, or I don't give them my opinion of what I think the right answer is. Because first of all, I don't have all the answers. I'm a real fact seeker. I don't make decisions capriciously. I like to gather as much information as I can to make an educated decision. But I always ask my guys, my team, what would you do? What do you think about this? What's your opinion? I don't tell them my opinion because I don't want to bias them and just say, well, I'm going to say what Adam says. Right. Because that doesn't help me. I want to hear all the different ideas. And two, I treat it like no idea is dumb. There's no such thing as a dumb idea because those ideas, maybe they don't work, but that's educational. Like, why doesn't that work? So it helps you form the basis for what your ultimate decision is. Like, well, we know we can't do this. Maybe we take a component of it. So that is something I have I've learned from working at so many different type of businesses, different industries, and large companies. I worked in billion-dollar companies. I worked in a lot of startups. So I've had the benefit of seeing the perspective of both sides, and I think that type of leadership style works best. And it's worked for me. Yeah. And that's how I'll always do it. I don't believe in micromanaging. You want to give your team the tools they need to be successful. Right. And because one day when you're not there, you for whatever reason, you want what you've initiated and implemented to survive. You want the positive aspects to live on. So I encourage, delegate to my people, my team, and I think we wind up with the best solutions because of that.
Yeah, sure. That's great. Adam, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no, my pleasure.
There you go. That's my conversation with Adam Romo, the CEO of Eatzi. As always, go to QSRmagazine.com for all the news and insights you need on the QSR and fast casual restaurant industries. Go to QSRmagazine.com/podcast for the full archive of Fast Forward. Of course, would love for you to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to it. Give us feedback, rate the podcast, email me, sam@QSRmagazine.com. Would love to hear that feedback, any questions or comments you might have. That's all for today. We'll talk to you again next time.